If you were with us last week, we began a new series. And all series this year, like I said, is out of a book of the Bible, because this year we called the Year of the Bible. Because there's no greater catalyst for spiritual growth, change, and maturity than time reflecting in God's Word. So we began a study on the book of Mark. And when we lay it all out, what we discover is Mark had a twofold purpose: to give us who the identity of Jesus was and what he accomplished. More importantly, though, what are the implications to us? Because all of the readers have a responsibility to make a conclusion for ourselves. And that's what you and I need to see and understand, is that what Mark represents speaks to us just as much in the 21st century as it did in the first and when it was written. So listen, as we go through, we kind of learn that the book of Mark breaks into two parts. The first half, Mark comes right out and says what he believes. It's the only time he tells his reader what he believes. He said Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God. But then he goes about in his storytelling to tell what Jesus did. And what he portrays to us in the first half is that Jesus' actions spoke even louder than his words. That Jesus showed his true identity through all that he did. And that's important that when we read it, to look at it from that point of view. Who is Jesus? Because that question is absolutely imperative that each of us answer it personally. And then the hinge point, the middle point of it, is there's this discussion, because the Messiah was the term for the king that was coming. And so he tells, what does it mean to be the Messiah? That's the hinge. It's the turning point. Because as Jesus prepares to go to Jerusalem for what he absolutely came for, in the second half of Mark's gospel, he tells us how Jesus became the king. But today we're going to look at a conversation that Jesus had with his disciples, because the questions asked are just as important for us to answer as it was what he asked his original disciples to answer. But here's the title of today's message: Allegiance is a choice. Allegiance is a choice. Jesus came to be the Messiah, the King, but he gives us the choice whether or not we choose to allow him to be our King, to be the one that we give our allegiance and loyalty to. And so importantly, this is the main idea I want us to grapple with today. Jesus didn't come to be king because he had needs. It's because we did. Let me say that again. Jesus didn't come to be king because he had needs. He came because we did. You see, all kings on a natural level come to rule. They come to have other people fulfill their will. They come to have other people do and serve their purposes, serve their needs. But Jesus is a different kind of king. In fact, in the kingdom of God, there's always choice, because God is love, and love always provides opportunity to choose, to give our loyalty. And what we need to recognize is that Christianity is deeply personal. Only you can make the determination and the decision for yourself. In other words, your spouse can't, your boyfriend, your girlfriend can't, not even your grandma can. Only you can decide who is Jesus to you personally. And it's important because we're caused to make that decision, but if we're honest, we say we do, but we ultimately want someone else to make the decision. I mean, be honest with me. We like when other people make a decision. Why? Because when we're responsible for our decisions, we have to take full and total responsibility for what we choose. But when somebody else makes the decision, if things don't go the way we wanted it to go, we can blame them. We can hold them responsible for that end. And that's a part of the fallen human nature. We're always looking for somebody else to blame. When things don't go well, it's not my fault. It has to be somebody else's fault. But no, the gospel resides around the responsibility of us to make a personal decision. And that's where we come to. In Mark chapter 8, the kind of turning point of this book, he begins to ask a question to his disciples, because now they've seen him full on. They have watched his ministry. Because the first half of Mark's gospel takes place all in Galilee, up in the northern region, where Jesus did many of his signs and wonders. But listen, he leads to this discussion as he's getting ready to head to Jerusalem. Now he asks a question, and look at what Jesus asked. Jesus and his disciples went on to the villages around Caesarea Philippi, and on the way he asked them, this is the first question he asked: who do people say I am? In other words, he's asking the disciples, what's the 411 on the street about me, guys? What are people saying about me? Because guess what? People in Jesus' day had opinions about Jesus just as much as they do in our day. People have a lot of different ideas of who Jesus is. So Jesus is asking his disciples, what are people saying? Because honestly, we are many times influenced by other people we esteem and look up to. We look at it because we're not willing to make that decision clearly on our own. We want to know, hey, what does other people think about that? But here what Jesus is trying to make known is it's really not important what other people think because you have to make a decision for yourself. But what is the word on the street? What are people saying? And so here's what the disciples answer. Verse 28, it says, they replied, some say John the Baptist. Now stop for a moment. Hopefully when you read the Bible, you take the opportunity to realize, man, that's really weird. But people really believe that. This was something being said. Because John was Jesus' cousin. And he had been arrested. If you read the story, he'd been arrested by Herod, who is the one responsible over Galilee. He's the authority. And he put John in prison. And ultimately, he beheaded him. So what the people on the street were saying, that Jesus is the reincarnation of John the Baptist, which doesn't even make sense. But a lot of opinions about Jesus today don't make sense. And then some say, he said, and so others say Elijah, and still others one of the prophets. In other words, people were trying to figure out, how could Jesus do the things that he did? There's obviously a supernatural component in what he's doing. He's not like anybody we've ever seen before. So there has to be a reason. There has to be a rationale. There has to be an explanation. He must be one of these great people of old that had power, that's been reincarnated, and now he's acting on their behalf. That's really, really weird. But that's what the people on the street were thinking. This is what the thoughts were. But notice Jesus, because listen to me. If you look at it today, people have opinions about Jesus today just as much as they did that. In fact, a lot of those things can influence even people within the church. I thought of a few just to tell you. One of my favorites, because this happens a lot to people in church. I was tempted to put up images, but I don't want to offend anybody. But listen, I call the first one boyfriend or girlfriend Jesus. Which means it's the one that gives me affirmation, the one that makes me feel good, the one that loves me, the one I love hanging out with, the one I love to have good times with, the one that, just is there and, oh, I feel so good. But yet we're not willing to go all the way. We're not willing. See, Jesus never came because he wanted us to date him. No, Jesus wants a full-fledged commitment from us. But that's what freaks us out. No, we love Jesus because we think he's a friend with benefits, if you know what I'm talking about. But no, Jesus is saying, listen, my identity, who I am, requires something from you. See, we all want something from Jesus, but Jesus is saying is, what are you willing to give to me? Because to have a relationship, who am I? Here's another one that I call it political Jesus. Because we want somebody to show up and basically set everything straight. In other words, legislate morality. Make all the bad people do what we want them to do. Block them up if they don't. This is part of the mindset of the Jewish people because they wanted a Messiah that was going to come as a king and expel all of the oppressors, all of the Romans who were the problems on this end. So they were looking for somebody like that. This has given rise to things like... It's a branch, people have called it liberation theology. It's something that really was popular in South America, Central America, because people come to the idea that the way to get rid of your oppressors is to violently throw them off, to get rid of it. And there's people who have this mindset that Jesus, by any means possible, came to restore and to correct all that was. But no, that's not the way of the kingdom. And that's not who Jesus is. Here's another one I call homeboy Jesus. In other words, Jesus is my bud. He's my friend. We hang, we're close. We're tight. He's my buddy. He never asked anything of me, he's just there to have a good time. But in other words, he's my friend. But although Jesus wants to be our friend, he's more than that. And you need to realize that he is a king. So as much as he wants relationship with us, he does not expect that that he just gives advice. He's there to lead us and direct us. And again, that's where it gets freaky for people when you talk about commitment. Okay? That's when folks want to run. They want to get out of town. They love having a good time, but whoa, you're going to ask something from me? No. I didn't sign up for that. So Jesus is asking the question, and here's the last one I thought about in this regard. It's what I call hippie Jesus. It's kind of like the one that we kind of like, he's kind of like, my guru. He's kind of like, I want to have experiences. This is what people look for. They look for Jesus for experience because he's the grateful living. He wants to take us on a long, strange trip. We want to come to church and have a spiritual experience, but yet we don't want somebody directing and leading our life. We look at God as he's the Most High. Like I come to have an experience. I come to he's gonna fix me up. He's gonna hook me up. I'm gonna have an experience. But no, Jesus is wanting a relationship. So Jesus asked the question to the disciples, and then he turns it, and this is what we always need to know. It becomes personal. And so he says, what about you? And that's what he's saying to all of us today. But what about you? Who am I to you? Because nobody else can determine that for you but you yourself. Only you can decide, who am I to you? Because that decision has implications associated to it. So in essence, he asked them, well, what about you? He asked, who do you say I am? Peter immediately speaks up and says, you are the Messiah. Jesus is like, ding, 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 you got it right, Pete. In fact, when Matthew told the story, he said, flesh and blood didn't tell you that. My Father in heaven revealed that to you. And Jesus accepts the title. He says, you guys have gotten it. That is who I am. I am the one you've been waiting for. I am the Messiah. And then he begins to explain to them, what does it mean to be the Messiah? Because you and I need to realize the centerpiece of Christianity is always a personal determination and decision. Who is Jesus to you? Okay? Peter made the right conclusion, and then Jesus begins to explain what it means. And Jesus warned them not to tell anyone about him. And he goes on to say this. So he began to teach them that the Son of Man, see, the Son of Man is a direct reference. I made the mention to this last week. But it is a direct reference to being Messiah because why? Daniel chapter 7, one of the most famous of all messianic prophecies. Daniel 7 says, I saw one like unto the Son of Man coming in clouds, who sat down at the right hand of the Ancient of Days. And unto him was given glory and honor and power and authority. And all of the nations worshiped him, and his kingdom would have no end. So when Jesus used the term Son of Man, he was talking specifically with respect to being the Messiah. And he says this, that all made sense to him until the next part. This is what derails the train for the disciples. Because what he's about to say, no Jew had ever associated with the Messiah. Jesus goes on to say, and he began to teach them that the Son of Man, notice the word must. In other words, this was why he came. This was intentionality. The Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the teachers of the law, and that he must, notice again the word must, be killed, and after 3 days rise again. No one in the Jewish faith had ever associated suffering and death with the Messiah. No, they had this royal figure in mind that he was going to come as a champion, that he was going to free the nation. But you see, God knows and loves us enough to recognize that changing your circumstances doesn't change your life. You believe that. You've been deceived to think that. But even when the circumstances of your life change, if what is in you doesn't change, your life will never be changed. You will never be content. Jesus came to truly address the issues that all of us had. He didn't come to be king because he had need. He came because we had need. And this is what is. But what happens is this. Jesus tells how this is going to happen. It's going to require my death. It's going to require me to suffer. And all of a sudden saying this becomes offensive because look at how Peter responds. Peter, the one that says, you're the Messiah. You're the one we've been waiting for. Jesus says, Pete, you got it. And then what happens next? He tells them what it means. And how did Peter respond? Verse 32, and he spoke plainly about this, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. The word rebuke is used in the New Testament when Jesus addressed demons. It is the strongest assertion of this, no, this is wrong. This is absolutely unacceptable. Peter says to Jesus, now listen, think about that. Peter has the audacity to rebuke Jesus. Why? Because since he was a child, his hope, his mother, his village, his whole community spoke of the hope of the entire nation was the coming of the Messiah. But how could it mean you die? How could it mean suffering? In other words, this wasn't a part of my agenda. This isn't what I think. No, Jesus, you got it wrong. Let me tell you how it's supposed to be. And how many times in our lives, everything is great. Everything is good following Jesus until something that Jesus says is something we don't agree with, something we don't accept, something we don't want to do. Then we want Jesus to do what we want. And in essence, Jesus is saying to us, no, do you accept me for who I am? And so what happens? Peter rebukes him. And how does Jesus respond? Look at this. But Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, and he rebuked Peter. He said, get behind me, what? Satan, that's rough. Because Jesus got through telling him, Pete, you were just influenced by my dad. Do you realize you just turned from Dr. Jekyll into Mr. Hyde? Now you're being influenced by the wicked one, whether you realize it or not. And he says, get behind me, Satan. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. And if we're honest, too often, the things that upset us, the things we're concerned about are purely human and not things that truly concern the heart of God. And that's what we have to come to realize, that following Jesus isn't about what we want. It's about understanding what his mission and purpose was and what it means to us. See, Pete wanted no part of that. He's like, no. If suffering is a part of it, that probably is going to affect me, and I didn't sign up for that. Jesus, you're the king. I'm following you because I want a place in your cabinet. I want to be a part of your royal reign. And so Peter's ideas didn't align with Jesus' ideas. But you see, again, Jesus came not to become king because he had needs, but because we did. Jesus came to meet, and it took suffering and death to be able to meet those needs. What needs did they have? It's ones that every one of us in this room have. Number one is a personal need. Why? Because as human beings, we need love as much as we need air and water. But you see, what we come to understand as a human is that we're all limited. We all are in need. We need so much love that we give it with the intent of getting it back in return. None of us are able to purely give unconditionally, to be totally vulnerable. Because why? We all withhold it when we don't feel like we're getting something in return. In essence, we need it so desperately. We're like mercenaries when we give love, because we give it because we're looking for something in return. But what we come to is to realize is that although we look for it in others, nobody else can truly love me in a way that fills me to my full, that gives me all that I need, because nobody else can purely love me for my own sake. Everybody that's human is looking for something because they have a need. And it gives us this realization that we find ourselves in this quandary. We desperately need something that no other human can actually give us. Because who can love us totally selflessly? Who can love us purely for our own sake, that looks for nothing, absolutely nothing in return? Only one: Jesus. Why? Because Jesus has all the love he has ever needed and will ever need. Why? Because the doctrine of the Trinity gives us this understanding that God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, for eternity, in selfless love, continue to honor and love one another. God has all the love he has ever needed and ever wanted. He didn't create man because he looked for something from man. No, he created man to give something to man. Why? Because that's what love does. God is love. You see, if you have ever thought that God is looking for something from me, no, let me tell you the truth. God is never looking for something from you. God is always looking for something for you. And whenever God asks something of you, it's always because he has your best interest in mind. But that takes trust. That takes the responsibility of knowing, learning, and believing that he does have my best interest at heart. And Jesus can love us purely selflessly, purely for our own benefit. That's why he was willing to suffer and to die. And so here's the point that I need you to understand. The more secure you become in Jesus' love, the less you need and the more you're able to love in return. You see, because only Jesus can fill you to the overflowing full. Only Jesus. And his death should forever brand into our understanding how much he loved us. Secondly, we had a legal need. Why do I say that? Because wherever there's an offense, it creates a debt. Somebody has to pay it. Let me give you an example. If you have a friend come over your house and they bump into a light, they break a light in your house, well, all of a sudden, what? Now you have a problem. There's a debt that's been created. So you have two choices. You can either make them pay for it, or you can absorb the cost. You can pay for it yourself. And if you don't replace the light, then you do with the less light that you once had because of it, right? We all know and understand that. People don't understand. Forgiveness is expensive. Because to forgive means letting go and releasing a debt. You see, God had a choice. And people say, well, why can't God just forgive? Because listen to me, God is just. Nobody ever celebrates injustice. It's easy to say, why can't you just let go? Why can't you just forgive until it's something important to you? Nobody knows that somebody who's guilty and responsible and knows what they did, letting off somebody like that never is justice, and nobody's excited about it, right? But God had a decision to make. Either hold us responsible or pay for it himself. Do you understand how Christianity is so radically different than any other belief system in the world? Because see, all other belief systems, when you talk about ancient gods or any other god besides Jesus, we're always looking to sacrifice. We're always looking that we need to do something for God, to gain his favor, to gain his thing. No, God doesn't need anything from us. God wants to show us his favor and love. And God is willing to absorb the cost. This is so difficult for the mind to wrap its mind around the idea that God himself would take the sin of the world in his own body to the cross. You see, Jesus dying for us provided every means that every obligation legally has been fulfilled in full. And why is this important to us? Because once you believe, once you trust in that, then no longer can your enemy use guilt and condemnation to control you anymore. Because once you know that Jesus satisfied all the claims of divine justice, you stop trying to bargain with God when you miss it and think like, I have to do something. It's all on me to get back into the good graces of God. No, Jesus paid it all once and for all. And when you know and understand that, it frees you from the guilt, the shame, and all of the condemnation that comes. That's why the scripture says, now in Christ Jesus, there is no condemnation. When you feel those ends, that's the enemy. And the more you know what Jesus did for you, you can stand against it. But the third need that all of us had is a civil need. A civil need. What do I say that? Because Jesus didn't die by being lynched by a mob. Jesus didn't die because he was beat up in a criminal act by others. No, Jesus died at the hands of civil authorities, both religious and governmental. Jesus was led to the Sanhedrin, to the Jewish leaders, and they condemned him to die. And then what? They turned him over to the Romans. And the Romans determined to flog him, crucify him, and kill him. So Jesus was legally put to death. But you see, his death had to be a violent death. Jesus couldn't just die, from old age or on. Why? Because Jesus came to confront the corrupt powers that have used the things in a way that was used power incorrectly. Because why? Government authorities and other things attempt to control people through fear. What do they want to do? If you don't do it, then what will we do? We'll kill you. But Jesus, by submitting himself to the legal regards of what they had said he was guilty of and giving himself, broke the corrupt power of government structures and the world system, that it would no longer have authority and control over him or over you and me. Why? Because now in Christ Jesus, we have nothing to fear. Because what can the world do to us? The worst thing it can do is to take your life. But to know this in Christ, to take my life, puts me directly into the hands of my Father in heaven. And Jesus said, I have gone to make a place for you. So now we don't have to live a life of fear. Now we can live a life of love and give of ourselves without having to worry. Why? Because Jesus has met our need. And that's why it's important. Listen, this next part is important. In God's kingdom, only through death do we find new life. See, this can be confusing for people, but Jesus said this of himself. He said, if a seed remains alone, it will never benefit others. But if it goes into the ground and dies, then it multiplies. Jesus was talking about his life because the potential of what he came to give us could only be released through his death. And it's a principle that you need to understand. That now in Christ Jesus, new life, restoration comes by what? Death. Death, not necessarily physical. You see, laying aside your will, lying aside your way, learning to do something new. See, in Christ, Jesus came to bring a new way of living. Look at what he said to his disciples. He called them to the crowd and he was alone with his disciples and said, whoever wants to be my disciple, he's talking to all of us. Whoever wants to be my disciple, notice he uses the word must again, must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. He goes on to say, for whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. When Jesus says, I'm a king that's on the way to the cross, if you want to follow me, then you need to follow me to the cross as well. What does it mean? What does the Bible mean here? What did Jesus mean when he said, take up your cross? What does it mean, lose your life? Well, the word life in the Greek is the word psyche. P-S-Y-C-H-E. Okay? We can translate the word soul. It talks about our identity. What makes us unique. Our own self-will, our own self-determination. Who we are in ourselves, our personalities. And what Jesus is telling us here is this. To follow me means that you can no longer build your life on any other thing but me. Why? Because our lives are generally built on things like career, things like possessions, things like all the things that we think will give us the uniqueness in our personalities. But no, Jesus said, no, none of those things. Following me means letting go of your will, letting go of your way, and doing life as I live it. In other words, following me will require you at times to say, no, I cannot do things the way I used to do them. Now, following Jesus requires me to do things a new way. And sometimes that can feel like death. Why? Because things that Jesus asks us to do sometimes, if we're honest, we don't want to do. But we have to ask ourselves the question, who is he? Who is he? Because to follow him, to gain the life that we have been called by God to live is all. See, because what happens too often, just like Peter became angry because he said, listen, suffering and death, that's not what I signed up for. Because if you're going to Jerusalem and you're going to suffer and you're going to die, that means this is going to affect me. And no. I am following you because I expected that I'm going to be in your cabinet. I'm going to be a part of it. And guess what? Peter, it's revealed, had selfish reasons for following Jesus. But be honest. A lot of us in this room have had selfish reasons for following Jesus. We want Jesus to give us a better life. We want Jesus to get us out of our problems. We want Jesus to do this. We want Jesus to do that. And too often what can happen is we look at Jesus as a means to an end. In other words, we attempt to use Jesus to do something for ourselves, but he says, no, building your life on me means doing things my way. Letting go of your way of doing things. Letting go of the things that you once looked for. Letting go of your pride. Letting go of your need for acceptance, your need for approval, your need for praise from other people. No. Following me may mean what? You may lose friends. You may lose a job because your employer wants you to do something unethical. You have to get to the place you say, no, I follow Jesus and I have to do it his way. Following me many times brings me to a cross. It makes me let go of the things that I'm used to experience what only He can do. Because what? If you're looking for things from Jesus, Jesus said, I'm not a means to an end. I am an end in itself. Do you recognize I am all you have ever needed? Well, you will never find contentment and fulfillment till you look not for what I can do for you, but who I am to you. And you and I begin to realize that you'll never truly find the life you were designed and created by God to live until it's lost in pursuing Jesus for who He is and stop pursuing what you want Jesus to do for you. See, following Jesus, I'm a king going to a cross. So following me means coming to the cross with me. See, it's the difference, because if you serve a king that's sitting on a throne, then you submit to him because you have to. But when you serve a king who is on a cross, then you submit to him because you love him and trust him. Because you realize if he went that far for you, what would anything he asked for us in return be equal to that? See, Jesus gives us the understanding that to be the king means that I'm willing to go all in, to give everything you need. Now, I'm asking you, will you commit to me? Will you love me? Will you trust me? See, the Bible says a relationship with Jesus in the New Testament is likened to marriage. Because what happens when two people marry from a biblical point of view, is that they say no. They say, forsaking all others, nowhere else will I attempt to find what only God designed for me to find in you. I am making a commitment of my own free will, of my own regard, to love you, to honor you. Don't we say vows at it? Don't we give our lives to it when we get, because two become one? Jesus offers his life to be united and connected with us, but gives us the choice. He gives us the ability to make the decision of our own accord, because it's not Jesus on our terms. It's Jesus only on his terms. Because you can't accept him as the Jesus you want him to be. You can only accept him for the Jesus he truly is, because he is the king who went to the cross for you. That's what Jesus wants us to understand. So let me end by this. Go right to the last points, guys. Making Jesus our king means this: only when I'm willing to lose do I truly win. In other words, when I'm willing to let go, when I'm willing to stop being stubborn and try to do it my way and surrender and say, all right, I'll do it your way, only when I lose will I ultimately win. There's an aspect of trust. There's an aspect. See, doing things Jesus' way, we look sometimes like, man, that would be wrong. I've talked to people, you've been hurt, you've been offended, depends on the level of it, and God asks you to forgive. You think forgiving is losing, that somehow the person who hurt you is going to win. No, but what you discover when you do is that the only person you were hurting when you didn't forgive was yourself. And you find freedom and liberty. Doing things Jesus' way sometimes is difficult, sometimes is not easy. But what we begin to realize is when we love him and when we trust him, doing him his way, when we lose, truly then alone do we win. Because that's a life of faith. But the second reality is making Jesus our king means only the cross indicates who's boss. See, everything following Jesus is great when everything is going good and everything is wonderful. And man, following Jesus, give me all I want and all this. But what happens when your will goes cross-grain to God's will? God wants you to do something that you don't want to do, and you have every rationale, every reasoning, and every justification. Why? That's not right for you. Maybe that's right for somebody else, but no. Whether it's with my money, whether it's with my marriage, whether any area of my life. No. I don't want to do it that way. God, you must not have had me in mind. But what happens when your will is going this way and God's will is going that way? That intersecting point is called a cross. And what is a cross? A cross is a place where flesh dies. And the reality is we'll never know the true position of Jesus in our life until he asks us to do something we don't want to do. And the question at that moment is, whose will wins out? Do we do what God asks us to do when we don't understand it, when we don't think it's the right thing, because we trust him, because we love him, and we do it his way? Or does our will win out? Because only the cross indicates who's boss. And you will never experience the life you were intended by God to live. See, if you fight to save the life you currently have, then you forfeit the life that Jesus came to give you. But only you choose, because it is the cross that indicates who's boss. And it's only when I'm willing to follow Jesus. See, it's easy to follow Jesus when it doesn't ask anything of you. But you never know whether he's Lord or not till he asks you to do something you frankly don't want to do. But you do it because it's the right thing, because he asked you, because you love him and trust him and know that he has your best interest at heart. That is a life of faith. And lastly, making Jesus our king means my allegiance is purely my choice. God never forces people into it. Just like right now in this building, you can all mouth the words, yeah, Jesus is my Lord, until the rubber meets the road and you have to decide, do I want the acceptance of my friends more than the acceptance of God? Do I care more about what people think than what God thinks? Do I care more about doing what's right because it's right versus doing what's easy? You see, my allegiance is my choice, and the Bible always provides the opportunity. Following Jesus, he said, follow me. You see, nobody can make the decision for you. Nobody can determine who is Jesus to you personally. One day, all of us will face Jesus. One day, all of us will come in contact with the one who died for us. And the simple question, see, nobody else will be there in that moment. Your spouse won't be there. Your grandma won't be there. Your boyfriend, your girlfriend, nobody else will be there. And Jesus' one simple question is, who was I to you? And when you say, Lord, Lord, did I not? And he says, but did you really know me? You see, there's a point of it. Following Jesus, he never promised it would be easy. He said, I'm a king on the way to the cross because that's what will meet your need. But to follow me means you got to be willing to follow me to the cross as well. Because to live the life I came to restore and bring will require you letting go. Giving up your self-will, giving up your self-determination, and choosing to follow me. Because there is no other way. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I'm the only way to the Father.